Any routine maintenance of your boat should include taking care of the fuel system, in particular the fuel filters and the fuel water separator. I decided it was time to change mine, so the fuel water separator is located in the engine compartment underneath of this Mercury 350 MPI. It looks kind of like an oil filter that spins on. Even though it's put on hand tight, I guess the heat of the engine makes it pretty difficult to get off, so after struggling with it for a bit, I decided to use a filter wrench. Years ago I gave away my oil filter wrench, so I didn't have one, so I ended up using a filter wrench that I use for the water filter on the outside of the house. Either way, it got it loose, and that's all I needed to do was just break it free so I could unscrew it. Once I loosened it up, I had an extra bucket that I just used to catch the fuel and water that poured out of the filter. Also, remember, you're going to be working around gasoline, so obviously don't use any fire or smoke or anything like that while you're working on your engine. You can see it unceremoniously drops into the bucket and then pours out the gas and whatever else was in there. I actually set it aside just to see if there was any water in there, and there was a little bit, which I guess the filter was doing its job in separating the water and the fuel. Next, I cleaned the housing off just to make sure there was no debris or anything there, and it was clean. As you can see, my svelte figure squeezes into the engine compartment and makes it kind of difficult to get in there. I bought an aftermarket fuel filter separator that has a bowl on the bottom that has a little screw and I can drain it. So I figured I'd give it a whirl. I also bought the OEM filters to keep on hand just in case. The new filter basically screws right on with that rubber gasket just like the old filter did. And it has that bowl at the bottom with the drain on it. The cutting edge Chinese technology seemed to be pretty good, so I figured I'd give it a whirl. It's also a good idea to put a little bit of oil on that ring before you install it, just to help lubricate it and seal it. I thought it would be a good idea to take a look. Well, I killed a turtle there with that plastic. Let me get that back. I figured it would be a good idea to take some oil off of the dipstick to lubricate that, because I was so impacted into the engine compartment I couldn't get out. But after fumbling with trying to get oil on there, I gave up and I ended up just putting some oil on my fingers from a quart of oil I had. The amount of oil that I was able to get off the dipstick was nowhere near sufficient to get the O-ring or the seal lubricated. So I finally gave up and reached down and got a quart of like $10 mercury oil, because it's all I had, and I only needed about a teaspoon, or actually a quarter of a teaspoon. But you just got to do what you have to do sometimes. As you can see, the working on my engine is very difficult because I have to kind of basically hang upside down, and the repair or the maintenance itself is not difficult. It's impossible to get to. So when you take a tiny guy like myself and you see I'm like shaking, it's not because I've been out all night drinking. It's because I'm supporting all of my body weight on my elbow, and I have a piece of foam shoved into my spleen over top of the fuel injectors supporting my weight. It's very uncomfortable. So I finally got the thing put together. Then I just reached down and screwed it on, and everything was fine. The repair itself is very simple to do. It's a good idea to read your manuals and learn to work on your own boat, or you can pay somebody else $200 an hour. But that doesn't matter when you're stranded on the water and don't know how to fix it.